Hey everyone, David C. Anderson here coming at you from the Knife Center, and it's that time of the week where, as always, we get to take a look at the coolest new knives that have just hit our shelves. Let's check them out. All right, we're going to start out with exclusive time, as we have for the last several weeks. New versions of our exclusive Hogue Deka have landed, now with the black hardware as opposed to the stonewashed hardware, married up with the red G-Mascus G10 that is exclusive to us right now. Very, very cool knife. Hogue puts together a really quality piece at the price, especially. This is only a few bucks more than the standard version due to the black coating. These come in about $149 right now. About 3 1/4 on the blade length, CPM 20 CV. Nice and thin, nice and slicey, just like the Deka you know and love. And you got that really cool handle material going on. I honestly think this is probably the best looking handle material out of all the Deka variants out there right now. I may be a little biased, but I still think it looks pretty cool. Black hardware here on the on the pocket clip as well as on the blockout plate on the front. Kept it all black with the black bladed version for a more stealthy look, even though it's not necessarily a stealthy handle, but it integrates really nicely. You got all 4 fingers fit on there for me, even with my slightly larger than average hands. Excellent flicking action thanks to their Able lock. It's the Deka. It's a great little knife, and I don't know, I'm always partial to stonewashed, but even I have to admit that the black looks really good. Just like our battle wash bug outs back in the day, the black looked better, even though I wound up carrying the satin version myself.
Here's one.
Thomas is handing me a knife because he's the black blade version. He always has carried that black one. I've carried the satin one, and for that reason, if we're playing this game, Thomas, I carried my satin one today. Whatever. It's a cool knife. Yes, we will be getting these eventually back in the stonewashed version, as well as black and stonewashed in the Wharncliffe as well. So if you're holding out for one of those, we don't have a time frame on them yet, but they will be coming down the road for sure. All right, Thomas, you can pick up your knife. It's fine. Don't need that anymore. Now we have, so yeah, the first 3 here are exclusives, and they're evolutions or new variants in some exclusive ranges we've had already, including the Farmer X, which previously you could get it from us and still can get it from us in red Alox, but now we've also added black Alox to our Knife Center exclusive versions of this really cool knife. But you've got all the tools that you know and love from the Farmer, got that excellent wood saw, and then of course the addition, the X of that pair of scissors. It makes kind of an X there. Always been one of my favorite models for an outdoors Swiss Army knife, between the Farmer and the Outrider. Usually I wind up picking the Outrider because of the locking blade, but the Farmer's a close second, and now with the scissors on the Farmer X, it's an even closer second in my mind, and it just looks really good in that black as well. All right, next up, we've got another new version of our exclusive Strider SNGs from ProTech. Stonewash blade in this case, although technically satin and stonewash. You've got a stonewash on the ground portion and satin on the flats, paired up with black and orange micarta. This is not G10, so it's got a really cool look going on. Of course, this is a little bit different from the one we saw a week or 2 ago that had a hand ground mirror polished blade. And as such, the price is a lot less than that one too. This is at about $250 on this guy. Blade length, about 3 1/2, 154 cm, as is kind of de rigueur from ProTech, and really aggressive texture on the handle. Not so much that it's bitey, but it's definitely very prominent. Adds a lot of traction there. And like the mirror polished version, this version keeps the mosaic button release there, which I think was a really nice touch. I really dig that. I always love a mosaic pin on a fixed blade, so I really like that as well. Folds up just like you would expect, and it's got that excellent ProTech action. Feels and sounds just right, and it looks kind of just right too. All right, next up we've actually got a sprint run Spyderco, which I don't always get the chance to show on these videos because they tend to go pretty quickly, but it's the new version of the Native Chief, which comes in at $245 right now. For that, you're getting an S90V blade, about 4 inches of it in fact. Lots and lots of edge retention going on here. on a nice, big, capable blade to boot. So you'd be able to cut for a real long time with this knife, but it's not gonna weigh you down because the handles themselves are carbon fiber, and it's full carbon fiber. It's not carbon fiber over G10. There's not even any liners on these guys. The handles themselves, just full carbon fiber slabs. So the whole weight of this guy for a 4-inch knife is just less than 4 ounces. So you're less than an ounce per inch of blade on a folder, which is pretty impressive. Not a lot out there can do that. Some do, certainly. Some very well-known knives can do it, but they're not altogether that common when it comes down to it. Feels really good. The edges are finished nicely, has a nice grip in the hand. You've got that 4-position pocket clip, plenty of handle length for even the biggest of hands, I would say. Nice full flat grind, being a Spyderco, you'd expect that. Folds up fairly compact, not super skinny, but should be a very easy knife to carry in the pocket. Opens up real easy as well. Very cool pieces, and once these are gone, these will be gone. All right, next up, we've got a new Spartan. It's not the first batch of these we've gotten in, but the first batch did go super quickly. The new smaller versions of the Harsey folder, the 3.25, signifying the blade length in this case. And these guys come in about $400, about $395 right now. Handles are just the classic bead blasted titanium, nice open back construction, solid feel in the hand. These have washers in the pivot as opposed to ball bearings, so it has a very different feel, a more, I don't know, think of like a Sebenza. There's, the Spartan knives, the SHFs have always been kind of compared very favorably to Sebenzas because it has that similar style of construction with the micarta and the brass or bronze washers in the pivot. And on this guy though, S45 VN steel. And while we expect the Sebenzas and Chris Reeve to kind of roll out S45, replacing the S35 they currently use, they haven't gotten there yet. So if you wanted a Sebenza or Sebenza-like knife with S45, these guys are in stock right now. So I should say if you want a small Sebenza or small Sebenza-like knife, because smaller knife here. Really, really solidly put together, made in the US, double lug, so you've got the that dual thumb stud action here as well. So lefties would be able to open that up fairly easily and unlock it as well, even though it is a right-hand bias system. But they've even given a nice cutout in the lock bar itself to help facilitate that left hand opening as well. Now, if your budget won't stretch something like that, but you still want a kind of real solid feeling knife, a little bit bigger of a one as well, part of Cold Steel's new 2021 lineup has started to show up. Leading the pack, of course, the 8015 Lite, coming in about $135 or thereabouts, which is a lot better than the $215-ish that the standard version started at before. Construction, though, is essentially the same as that higher end model. The reason the price is lower here is a swap out in certain materials. For one, you've got an FRN or GrivX handle material here rather than G10. Keeps the weight down a little bit too, in addition to the cost. And AUS 10 blade steel in this case, rather than the S35 powdered steel that they use on the higher end versions. Still offers a good amount of performance though, probably somewhere in the ballpark of things like N690 and VG10. Of course, they're not one-to-one, so there will be some slight differences, but that gives you a general ballpark of kind of where this steel sits in the hierarchy. 3.5 inches is the length of that blade. Nice sturdy thickness. This isn't a thin slicey knife. They went for a little more kind of rigidity and brute strength here, but it does have a high flat grind. It's not going to fall on its face when you go to slice with it for sure. Thumb studs are nice and oversized, and you've still got that nice scorpion lock, which is that yoke you pull up from the back of the knife. Certainly works very easily one-handed in a ambidextrous manner as well, because with the dual thumb studs there and the rear mounted lock, there's nothing biasing it one way or the other. You've even got the reversible pocket clip there to help maintain that on either side. And you can even do a little bit of the flicking going on as well. Just kind of lift the yoke up and give it a little bit of centrifugal action from your wrist. You can do that quite easily. Now, whereas with this knife, they took a higher end design and brought in a lower priced version, this next knife is, well, technically a return to another higher priced version. For a while there, we've only had the 4MAX Scout, which was a bit over $100, and they've reintroduced a higher end version, the standard 4MAX, now coming in about $425. So pretty big jump in price there. Blade steel here is S35 VN. It's got a nice heavy stone wash texture going on. Big broad drop point, a little thicker again, going for the strength, and about 4 inches on this guy. So plenty of real estate to work with on a folder, and even more real estate to work with on the handle. I mean, there is an absolute ton of room on this guy without even having to use that forward finger choil to choke up. I mean, especially when you go up there, more than enough room for pretty much anyone out there. The handles are G10. It's a green and black. Looks really good. And then, of course, we've got the Triad lock, Cold Steel's tried and true, extra strong take on the lockback mechanism that locks it up quite nicely. Definitely less of a, or not so much of a smaller package when you fold it up compared to that Native Chief. But there's kind of 2 different ways to go after the 4-inch blade. You can go with slicier and more built for precision, or you can go for the brute strength with something like that Cold Steel. All right, next up, as opposed to being kind of revamps or expansions of some existing lines, we've got 2 kind of completely new lines, I should say. The new Kyoto series and the new mini Leatherneck series. I guess you could kind of call that an extension of the regular Leatherneck, but it's a whole new size and shape for this series, so I'm going to call them new in this case. These are priced pretty affordably. Just over $25 on either of these. I'll start with the Kyoto. There's 2 versions. You've got the Tanto, as well as a more standard trailing point design, which is actually a little bit closer to an Eastern Tanto as opposed to the Americanized Tanto that you get here. Steel is HCR series stainless, about 3¼ inches going on there. Not terribly thick or thin. It's kind of a good in-between, good just right size for this style of neck knife. And I do say neck knife because you get a Securex sheath there with no belt attachment hardware included, or any kind of ball chain either. You'd have to supply your own lanyard for one of these guys, because this is kind of what comes out of the box right here. Handles themselves are Crayex. It's kind of a grippy rubberized texture, and it's designed to mimic that kind of wrapped handle reminiscent of the Eastern style blades that I just mentioned. But this is just a single piece rubber overmold essentially. Definitely gives you a lot of grip, especially for something with such a straight handle. You've got a lot of traction there to keep your grip when you're going to town and cutting. And then there on the mini Leatherneck side, we've got essentially the same story. Construction is the same, materials are the same, it's just a different vibe overall. The handles here, instead of mimicking Japanese swords, mimics, of course, the classic stacked leather handles that the original Mark II and the K-bar knives were famous for having. You do have a nice shallow spot here on the front, or a trough, I should say, on the front and the back for a little bit of a pinch point or maybe a fingertip grab point. A little bit more of a guard on this than on the Kyotos as well, and it's forward leaning as opposed to angled back like some of those old Mark IIs used to be. You've got the clip point blade shape, which is, had to show that one for sure, but you can also get a Western style Tanto here, as well as a spear point dagger profile as well, and they all look really good. I almost pulled that dagger for you guys because it looks really cool. Even better, if you like a double-edged knife, that dagger has got it. This guy's single-edged, though. Both really cool knives, though, in any case. All right, next up, we've got a new Tops fixed blade. It's a Tops. Most of them are fixed blades, let's be honest, which is why I love them. You guys know I love a fixed blade, and I love a fixed blade company. But anyway, this is the Trail Seeker. Comes in about $135, and this is actually, the design of this came from, every year they hold an employee contest to submit designs for people who aren't necessarily involved in the normal design process of the company, and they hold a competition. There are kitchen knives, the Dicer series came out of that, and this is the latest winner to come out of that program. Has a pretty cool look. This was designed by the guy Louis Murillo. I'm not sure how you pronounced your first name, sir, but he's their Kydex manager over there at Tops, and he came up with this guy. Really cool. Blade length about 4.5 inches. It's $10.95 with a black powder coating, kind of classic Tops, paired with micarta handles with, in this case, some nice subtle liners. They tend to put that little extra pop of color in there a lot, which I like. As far as the design, Trail Seeker, obviously geared a bit towards outdoors usage. Definitely a versatile shape for use in that kind of scenario, and thick enough you could do things like splitting wood. So it would make a really good survival knife. And I really like, on a survival knife, to have something like a finger guard, but I also know and appreciate the utility of being able to get close to the edge itself for the close-in work and carving, and the way it's handled here achieves both of those results quite well. You've got gentle enough of a curve here at the finger guard, but plenty there to arrest your forward motion, keep you from slipping onto that edge, and that edge itself comes all the way back. You can get right up on it quite nicely. Handles a little bit on the thinner side, but they do feel comfortable enough thanks to the height this way, and you've got some milled traction lines essentially on the high points there to give you a little extra retention when you're getting down and dirty. Speaking of which, I think this has certainly applications a little bit more beyond just the outdoors usages. Kind of like a lot of Tops' stuff, it does the outdoor stuff as well as some tactical stuff pretty well. And while this one may lean a little more outdoors, I think this would make a good choice for operators as well, especially if you don't want to invest in a whole lot of gear and want your stuff to cover a lot of bases. Sheath, being designed by their Kydex manager, it's going to be Kydex. Snaps in quite easily, or quite well, as you can see, and you've got the nice dangler attachment there on the back. That is essentially the attachment system you're left with, though. I did check, and these holes don't quite match up with something like the Tech Lock, so it's going to be a little bit harder to facilitate a different type of carry if you want it. Certainly possible, but might take a little more doing. And then there on the bottom, you got the Tops survival whistle that they include on a lot of their fixed blade sheaths. It's a nice little add-on for sure. All right, next up, we've got a new brand here at the Knife Center, and that is D-Rocket. And this is one of their OTFs. This is the Mid-Tech Zulu Spear, coming in about $265 right now. It's a little bit on the smaller side. Blade length is 3 inches. We've got M390, double-edged, as you can see there. So about 6 inches of sharpened edge, or getting close to it. So a lot of long-lasting edge holding here as well. Even more so than, well, I say that. I said almost even more so than the S90V blade here because there's more edge, but S90 should hold an edge longer than M390. Your mileage may always vary, of course, but there's a lot of edge to work with here in any case. The handles are really nice, aluminum like most OTFs, and I love this red color, nice and luminous. And the shape, while just looking at it head on, it's just looks kind of rectangular. What's nice about it is if you look at it from the end, it actually has sort of a U shape, subtle U shape or subtle dished out shape, which is really nice, especially on the fingers or the thumb side in front of that switch there. Your hand just naturally nestles right in it. You want to get right there, push the blade out, and it's got a combination of fast action, but it feels very supple in a way. It's very accommodating. Works very well. Backside, you've got that pocket clip there, not reversible, but of course, the whole knife is essentially reversible without doing anything by nature of its design. And you've even got some finger grooves in the bottom of that U shape there to kind of hold your grip on those guys. And it looks like you could probably remove this, actually. I haven't checked, but it looks like it's got a screw head there to take out, and you do have finger grooves underneath the pocket clip itself. So that would make sense for it to be removable if they're gonna put those there. Just a really cool little knife and a very nice addition to our OTF selection here at the Knife Center. All right, keeping with the kind of long, narrow style, we've got the much anticipated Gslip Compact from Real Steel. This one right here comes in just under $60. Few different colors right now, but the coolest is probably this natural G10 version here, that jade G10 look that looks really cool. It's got just over 3 inches of blade, VG10 steel, nice full flat grind, pretty good slicing characteristics overall, very nice blade shape overall, and that signature kind of Ostap Hell dent down here at the back carries over from the full-size version, which I have a new version of that coming up in a second as well. Deep carry pocket clip, that wire style, it is reversible for either side. Nice crowned back spring here with a nice hidden lanyard attachment point there. Keep using the word nice, it's a nice knife. And in terms of the fit and finish and the snap, the action, you've got that sort of 2/3, 1/3 stop as opposed to the true half stop, and that's just the way Real Steel likes to do things, kind of their signature move. and it snaps closed pretty nicely. Not super snappy, but certainly more than enough to have a nice satisfying action to it. If you'd rather have some more length and go with the original, we do have a new version, like I mentioned, now with olive wood handles. Come on, olive wood looks really good. Olive wood too. Do you love wood? Yeah. And these guys come in about 68 bucks. So that's actually, what is it, about 10 bucks more, or about 9 bucks more than the small version with G10. So you get more length and the more exotic wood at the same time. But apart from that, specs are pretty much the same, except for the lack of a pocket clip on this particular version. You won't be able to get that in this wood version. Blade length on this guy though, 3.5, VG10, full flat grind, partial stop along the way, nice action, beautiful wood. All right, sticking with the non-lockers for a minute, we've got a new Kizer design. This is the Pinch, and it comes in at $59 as well on this guy. And this is not a slip joint like those two knives, but this is one of the detent joint style of mechanisms. You've got that detent bar on the inside to kind of hold things in, and folds up quite nicely. It has a bit of a smoother action than most slip joints out there, but not quite as much tension is required to actually pop the blade into the closed travel. So keep that in mind as you're using it, especially with a blade shape like this with a straight back spine. If you're going to pierce with it at all, just keep in mind that the force acting on the blade is kind of going to be pushing it in the direction it wants to go when it wants to close. So be careful if you're using this knife like that. But apart from that, very cool design. Blade length itself is just over 3 inches. We've got N690 steel, stone washed finish, and it kind of almost looks like a Scandi grind here, but it isn't. But it's kind of a nice nod to the heritage of this knife. It has sort of a classic Finnish puukko look to it. And so that the fact that they left it with a stouter flat grind than with the secondary edge kind of even furthers that comparison in my mind. And would definitely make a good whittling knife, even though it doesn't have a Scandi grind. Whittle without Scandi grinds for eons, but you've got a little more of that wedge-like capability or that wedge-like characteristic behind the edge as you're carving and whittling. Now you could also kind of think of this as kind of a new school sod buster as well, thanks to that type of shape right there. Handle, nice and simple, has a very natural sweep to it for certain types of more detail-oriented grips without it being prescriptive or too small for folks, even though I've got my pinky finger starting to hang off there. Doesn't feel like a problem at all. A few different handle materials as well, but the red linen micarta here, definitely my favorite. Reversible pocket clip as well, matching micarta backspacer. Just a pretty cool knife that's always gonna be there in a pinch. Huh? Yeah, Thomas was not impressed by my joke, but that's okay. We'll move on to the next knife instead. Which is another Kizer. It's a new version of the Mini Domin, coming in at $55 right now. So pretty good price for this nice tuxedo looking, or tuxedo spec'd out knife here. N690 steel, 2.9 inches of it, full flat grind, nice drop point profile. Handles are G10, white with that black bolster, over top of just standard liners with a liner lock there. And the opening action on these with the thumb studs is pretty darn good. It's not bearings in the pivot, but you can still flick it open quite nicely. And then you got a reversible deep carry pocket clip there as well. Just a nice subtle looking carry. Maybe subtle's the wrong word. It's a pretty striking looking carry, but it is on the fancier side without looking, even though you've got a lot of black, it doesn't look overtly tactical to me anyway. Just a really cool piece. All right, we showed one Spyderco earlier, but we've got a bunch of Spyderco here at the end, which, there's a lot of good stuff on the video when the Spyderco makes its way towards the end of the video, but such is life. A bunch of new lightweight models have arrived. First of which and largest of which is the Police 4 lightweight with the K390 blade steel, coming in about $165 right now. Definitely a lot of edge here, 4.4 inches almost. And of course, K390 is amongst the best edge holding steels out there. It's more of a carbon powder metallurgy steel as opposed to a stainless like that S90V. But both of these steels are sitting right up there near the upper echelons of edge holding these days. It's going to feel great on these knives too because of that full flat grind and thin enough blade stock where they're just ready to slice. And the new Police 4s are even readier to slice than the old Polices because you've got a little bit more of a sweep or a continuous curve to the belly on these blades than on previous versions that had a lot more straight edge before a small amount of belly out there near the tip. You've also got that nice full-size finger choil right there. You can get right up there behind the edge and tons of length here on the back of the handle to hold onto again, even for the largest hands out there. No Andre the Giant's watching our video. You'll prove me wrong, but you guys know what I'm talking about. Just like the next couple of knives, it's got Spyderco's greatest hits. You've got a 4-position pocket clip, mid-mounted lock back, easy one-hand opening, full flat grind. Everything you want in a Spyderco. For a knife with this kind of steel, with this kind of edge retention, by pairing it with the FRN handles, they keep the price a little lower than it could have been otherwise. So even though 165 is not cheap, it's definitely a little bit more attainable for the folks who might really be able to put the edge retention you get here to use. All right, next up, we've got the new versions of the Spyderco Salt 2. 2 different blade shapes and 2 different edges for each. I've got the plain edges here, but we've also got these both in full serrated edges right now. And these guys come in about 116. Now the handles on these are based on the shape of the current generation of Delica, but they're not interchangeable. These are, they've rearranged these so there's no liners and nothing inside that's going to rust because the Salt series aims for being as rust proof as possible. And as a result, they're actually a little bit thicker than the Delica, which I've got a new version here. I'll hold them up side by side. It's subtle, but it's definitely noticeable, and it's definitely a little bit more hand-filling. Not that it is a hand-filling design in general, but you do get a little bit more with these salts. And a little bit less weight, I think, too. 1.9 ounces. Pretty good. Whereas the standard Delica I've got over here is about 2.4. Not heavy by any means, but even lighter right here. So if you were looking earlier, I was also talking about that native 5 being less than an ounce per inch. This is even less of a less than an ounce per inch on these guys. You know what I mean. I don't know. I feel like I'm babbling today. What do you think, Thomas?
A little bit.
It's what I do. He'll make me make a little bit of sense by the time you guys are watching this, hopefully.
No guarantees.
No guarantees. But yeah, both of these guys have the nice green coloration, which is going to be more visible underwater, and also, if you're tired of black knives, these offer a really compelling option as well. You've got the Wharncliffe, and you've got the almost Delica shape. It's got a little bit more of a drop towards the tip here than the standard Delica, so you've got a little bit more tip strength going on. But both of them are carrying one of the super stainless steels out there today, LC200N, which has more edge retention than the H1 that they've used in the Salt series in the past. But gives up just a little bit of corrosion resistance. Not much. These are still, I used to say they were completely stainless, but they are very nearly completely stainless. If you leave these in the bottom of a creek for several months, the blade won't rust away, but it will develop maybe a little bit of surface color. Ask my friend Joe Flowers, he'll let you know what I'm talking about. But let's be honest, that amount of patina, it's virtually stainless. But yeah, really cool Wharncliffe here too. Spyderco always does a really great job with those nice, completely straight edges, nice, very sharp, acute tip. If you work around the water and you're not afraid to spend a little bit of money on a knife, and you want something that's really gonna stand up and really have to worry very little about in terms of maintenance, definitely check these guys out. Next up, we've got a couple of pink Spydercos. New versions of the Delica and the Dragonfly. You may have seen the satin blade version of the Delica a week or two ago. The black blade version of that is now comes in about 133. And in addition to the pink handle here, which actually sales of these, Spyderco actually donates a portion to Pink Heels, the charity there. So you are supporting a good cause when buying one of these knives. And you've got S30V on a Delica too, which is really cool. And the black and pink work really well together. For a little bit of a smaller carry, you've got that Dragonfly. Same story here. You've got a satin blade instead in this case, but you still get S30V, you still get that nice pink handle, and you get a wire pocket clip in this case, only 2 positions, so it's almost all of Spyderco's greatest hits. Well, technically it is. Their wire pocket clip is one of their greatest hits, but you don't get the 4-position clip in this case. But that's all right, because it's a cool little knife. The Dragonfly has always been a cool little knife. You can get, even for a guy like me with larger hands, you can get all 4 fingers on the handle, but it's still gonna fold up small enough that you could fit it in that little 5th watch pocket in your pair of jeans if you were so inclined. And you're supporting a good cause, and you get some steel in the process. Oh, prices on this one. I didn't mention that. $87.50. There you go. Well, that's all I've got this week. Thanks for sticking around. Let me know your favorites down there in the comments. And as always, to get your hands on any of these knives, follow the links in the description. That'll take you over to the Knife Center. And as I always like to mention, don't tune me out yet. You've got our Knife Rewards program. Make sure you're signed up, because if you're going to spend your money on one of these knives, might as well earn some free money to spend on your next one. I'm David C. Anderson from the Knife Center, signing out. See you next time.